What if an ordinary night turned into the most extraordinary adventure of your life? Axel Ridge, an unsuspecting freelance programmer, finds his world forever changed. At stake, the universe itself, with a connection that defies time and space. Can love conquer all, including the greatest of interstellar distances? Ethical dilemmas will ignite as Axel navigates this thrilling bond. If you want to dive into real stories of parallel realities every day, in enigmatic, technological worlds that are completely different from our planet, subscribe to our channel and leave your like. Well, let's go. Axel stood at an average height, with piercing green eyes that often looked as if they were seeing beyond the material world. His wiry frame was a testament to hours spent hunched over screens rather than engaging in physical exertion. His hair, a messy mop of dark curls, always seemed to be on the verge of chaos, much like the multifaceted problems he frequently encountered in his virtual projects. The solitude of his profession suited his introspective nature, but Axel often felt an unnameable longing, a sense that life was passing him by while he remained ensnared in digital constructs. It was a typical night. The sky outside his window was a velvety expanse dotted with distant stars, and the only sound in the room was the gentle hum of his computer's cooling fan. He was engrossed in debugging a particularly stubborn segment of code when an ear-splitting crash shattered the tranquility. The noise originated from his living room, a place devoid of anything that could naturally cause such a commotion. Heart-pounding, Axel pushed back his chair, his mind racing through a gamut of potential mundane explanations, none of which held any real conviction. As he cautiously approached the source of the noise, his eyes fell upon something that defied all logic. There, amidst the ruins of his coffee table, stood a figure unlike any he'd ever seen. Liv was otherworldly in every sense of the word. Her skin was a gleaming cyan with subtle, shifting hues that seemed to ripple across her form, akin to the play of light on water. Her eyes, large and luminous, shone with an intensity that hinted at intellect far surpassing human understanding. Liv wore a form-fitting suit of a material that looked both metallic and organic, emitting a faint bioluminescence that accentuated her ethereal appearance. Liv was an emissary from a distant civilization known as the Zarian Empire. Her crash landing was not a random event but a desperate and hurried act of survival. The Zarian spacecraft orbiting Earth had malfunctioned, leaving her with no option but to execute an emergency teleportation. Axel's apartment had become the unlikely locus for this astronomical mishap. The initial shock left Axel paralyzed momentarily. However, his inherent curiosity quickly supplanted his fear. Here was a being from beyond the stars, standing in his living room, a living testament to the theories and dreams humanity had harbored for millennia. Despite the multitude of questions bubbling in his mind, Axel understood the immediacy of the situation. Liv's ship was in dire need of repair, and although Zarian technology was eons ahead of anything on Earth, Axel knew he had to try to help. Liv's voice, though melodious, carried gravity. Communicating through a universal translator embedded in her suit, she explained her predicament. Each word conveyed the urgency of their situation, and Axel couldn't help but notice the barely contained anxiety in her eyes. Even in a state of vulnerability, there was a regal poise to her demeanor, a testament to her role in the vast hierarchy of the Zarian Empire. Equipped with his limited technical knowledge but driven by an acute sense of empathy, Axel embarked on the daunting task of providing aid. Days melded into nights as they worked side by side, unraveling the enigmas of Zarian technology. Axel's workspace transformed into a makeshift lab, strewn with an incongruous amalgamation of human tools and alien devices. The Zarian spaceship's mainframe was a marvel of bioengineering, a living entity symbiotically linked to its pilot. It reacted to Liv's touch and mental commands, creating an intuitive interface far beyond any human computer. Axel found himself both awestruck and confounded by its design. The ship's core components mirrored organic structures, yet their functionality adhered to principles he could only begin to grasp. The symbiotic relationship between Liv and her craft demanded not only technical repairs but also a synchronization of mind and machine. Axel discovered that, despite the apparent insurmountability of their task, there was a deeply ingrained sense of connection and collaboration that emerged between them. Liv's stoic exterior belied a profound emotional depth that Axel sensed in their shared moments of quiet. When they weren't busily tackling the repairs, Liv would sometimes pause to share snippets of the Zarian culture with him. Her descriptions painted a picture of a society that balanced technological prowess with an almost spiritual reverence for their interconnectedness with the cosmos. As the days went by, Axel began to understand the weight of the responsibility they bore. The Zarian Empire was vast, and their protocols were stringent. Liv's prolonged absence could signal trouble, potentially jeopardizing not just her mission but also the delicate balance between their worlds. However, as much as he was driven to see Liv safely to her destination, Axel could not ignore the burgeoning feelings that had taken root within him. Driven by a mix of curiosity and growing affection, Axel found himself increasingly drawn to Liv. There was a complexity to her, an amalgamation of strength, vulnerability, and wisdom that resonated with him. He marveled at her resilience, her ability to remain composed despite the monumental odds they faced. Yet, he couldn't help but notice the subtle signs of strain, the way her bioluminescence dimmed slightly during moments of despair or frustration. Their bond became apparent through their shared experiences, a connection that went beyond the mere need for survival. Axel's compassion and empathy mirrored the Zarian's deep-seated belief in unity and harmony, creating a profound resonance between them. As they delved deeper into the repairs, their teamwork evolved into an intuitive dance, fluid and seamless. One particularly challenging night, while wrestling with the intricacies of the ship's neural network, they experienced a breakthrough. As Liv manipulated the organic circuitry, Axel noticed patterns that suggested a secondary conduit system, a redundant mechanism that could bypass the damaged segments. Their excitement was palpable as they worked through the night, piecing together the segments with a combination of human ingenuity and Zarian intuition. The ship's systems began to flicker to life, its bioluminescent veins pulsing with renewed vigor. Liv's relief was almost tangible, manifesting in a luminescent glow that filled the room with a gentle radiance. Axel felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment, tempered by the bittersweet realization that their time together was drawing to a close. In those fleeting final hours, the connection between Axel and Liv reached its zenith. They had embarked on this journey as strangers from different worlds but emerged as kindred spirits united by an extraordinary bond. As the days slipped by in a blur, Axel Ridge found himself staring at technologies far beyond his comprehension, feeling more like an ant attempting to decipher the workings of a supercomputer. Liv, the emissary from the Zarian Empire whose cyan skin and luminescent eyes now seemed almost familiar, worked tirelessly beside him. Together, they toiled through the complex maze of Zarian technology, each passing hour a reminder of the ticking clock looming over them. There was no shortage of tools and components unfamiliar to Axel, from pulsating crystalline structures to ethereal plasma conduits that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The repair process was grueling, and each step felt like it came with a new set of challenges. Liv's spaceship had sustained extensive damage, resulting in systems that refused to cooperate. It was as if the vessel itself was ailing, betraying the anxiety that plagued Liv with every malfunction. Her alien nature allowed her to interface directly with many of the ship's systems, bypassing what would otherwise be insurmountable barriers for Axel. Still, there were moments when even her advanced skills met their match in the face of complex breakdowns. Liv's serenity began to fracture as the pressure mounted. The weight of the Zarian Empire's expectations bore heavily on her. As an emissary, her prolonged absence was not just a matter of personal failure. It could incite the ire of her people and bring unintended consequences upon Earth. These stringent protocols were pervasive within the Empire, each emissary a linchpin in a vast network of diplomacy and influence. Any deviation, any lapse, was unthinkable. Compounding these dire circumstances were the emotions that had started to brew between them. Axel found himself inexorably drawn to Liv, her otherworldly presence a beacon in the gray monotony of his former life. Their burgeoning bond wasn't merely a distraction, it was an anchor in the storm of uncertainty they now navigated. However, the evolution of this emotional connection came with its own set of complications. Liv's alien biology made her emotions volatile, unpredictable. What humans might describe as a flutter in the stomach or a racing heartbeat turned into overwhelming physiological responses for Liv. It frightened her, these sensations swarming her consciousness and threatening to destabilize her already precarious situation. Amidst the clamor of repair drills, the hum of data being decoded, and the myriad beeps and boops of alien machinery, the two found solace in brief, stolen moments of respite. It was in these interludes that Liv would let her guard down, her shivering touch finding Axel's hand, her luminous eyes dimming with a vulnerability that spoke volumes. Liv confided in Axel about her anxieties, painting a picture of a majestic yet unyielding empire. The Zarians were not a species accustomed to failure, their society structured around efficiency and precision. Liv's mission had been of utmost importance, bridging gaps of diplomacy that few others could. Her unexpected detour to Earth and the subsequent need to rely on a human, a species the Zarians considered primitive, felt like the universe playing a cruel joke on her. Axel understood her, or at least tried to. His human empathy allowed him to connect with her more deeply, even if he couldn't fully grasp her experiences. The emotional storm didn't just brew within Liv, it swept Axel along in its ferocious tide. He grappled with his own entanglements, questions of inadequacy, the very real dangers that Liv's prolonged stay posed to him and possibly to Earth. The Zarians' stringent protocols were looming threats, faceless but no less frightening. If they were to discover Liv's extended absence and the reasons behind it, Earth's safety, Axel's safety, might very well be jeopardized. More than once, Axel found himself staring out of his apartment window, pondering the vast skies and feeling a burgeoning sense of responsibility he had never known before. In the labyrinthine corridors of Liv's damaged ship, they both felt the looming, invisible presence of the Zarian Empire. It was as if the walls themselves whispered the unspoken fears and expectations, each echoing footstep bouncing reminders of the critical situation at hand. Axel's fingers often trembled as he worked, each faulty connection or glitch becoming a personal affront to the monumental task they faced. Yet, with every misstep, every corrected error, his understanding of their technology grew, his familiarity with its intricacies deepened. Liv's guidance, though seasoned with frustration, also carried a note of reluctant respect for Axel's determined persistence. The turning point came one evening when Liv was working feverishly to recalibrate the ship's navigational matrix. Her hands moved in a blur, the crystalline interfaces lighting up under her touch with a brilliance that made Axel's head spin. Then, without warning, she crumpled to the floor, overwhelmed by a wave of emotional and physical exhaustion. Axel rushed to her side, his heart racing with a fear that was becoming all too familiar. Liv's resilience seemed to be crumbling, her once steady determination now fragile beneath the weight of their shared challenges. As she lay there, her breaths coming in ragged gasps, Liv looked up at Axel with eyes that shimmered with unshed tears. Her vulnerability was palpable, a stark contrast to the formidable emissary he had first encountered. It was then that she revealed a staggering truth. The Zarians formed powerful, unbreakable bonds with others, bonds that went beyond mere emotional connection. These bonds were a fusion of mind, body, and spirit, integral to their very existence. Liv's bond with Axel, unplanned and unintended, had grown stronger with each passing day. This connection was now a critical part of her, one that provided stability in the tempest of her emotions. Her confession was a raw, painful admission that the urgency of repairing the ship was now intertwined with her survival. Without the stability Axel provided, without the anchor he had become, Liv's condition would continue to deteriorate. Axel found himself facing an existential dilemma. Could he truly stand by and watch someone he had grown to care for wither away, even if it meant putting himself at further risk? The bond between them had become undeniable, an invisible thread weaving their fates together. Embracing this connection, Axel felt a renewed determination. The unimaginable stakes lent him a resolve he had not known he possessed. Together, they uncovered new depths of teamwork and intimacy, each moment of success forging a stronger bond between them. The repairs progressed with a newfound urgency, their every action infused with a dual purpose: Liv's survival and her return to the Zarian Empire. Their movements became synchronized, almost as if guided by an unspoken understanding. Axel's attempts to decode alien data became more adept, his hands learning the dance required to manipulate the shimmering interfaces. Liv, fortified by their connection, found herself more in control of her emotions, the volatility easing into a more manageable rhythm. However, as the repairs neared completion, a painful truth began to cast shadows over their progress. The inevitable departure loomed closer, a reality that both Axel and Liv had been steadfastly ignoring. The situation escalated dramatically as Liv unveiled a truth that shook Axel to his core. Zarians form potent, unbreakable bonds with others, and she had unintentionally formed such a connection with him. This revelation came as a shock. Axel's existence had been grounded in the mundane, the tangible. His life focused on lines of code and predictable routines. Now, he was confronted with the reality of an interstellar connection that defied all logic. The urgency of repairing Liv's spaceship took on a new, intense significance. Her very stability hinged on this bond, and if they failed, it would have catastrophic personal consequences for Liv, and potentially disastrous ramifications for Axel as well. The future of two individuals, from different worlds, intertwined in a race against time. Axel's mind churned with a storm of thoughts, each more troubling than the last. He felt the weight of the newfound responsibility pressing down on him. No longer was he just aiding an alien visitor, he was now intrinsically linked to her survival. As the essential elements of Liv's confession sank in, he grappled with the ethical dilemmas it presented. Could he embrace this connection, knowing it came with such high stakes? The concept of love and its societal boundaries were suddenly rendered irrelevant in the face of this profound cosmic relationship. He watched Liv intently, noting the minute changes in her expression, a fluctuating mix of vulnerability and determination. The luminescence in her eyes, once a mere exotic trait, now reflected the depth of her reliance on him. Her cyan skin seemed to shimmer in the dim light of his apartment, a visual reminder of the alien world she came from, starkly contrasting with the earthly environment that surrounded her. The air seemed charged with unspoken emotions, the tension so palpable it was nearly a physical presence in the room. Determined to push through, Axel dove back into the intricate task of fixing the Zarian spaceship. He felt the pressure rising as Liv's condition appeared to tethered increasingly to their burgeoning connection. The once daunting technological challenges now seemed almost secondary to the emotional and ethical maelstrom they found themselves in. His confidence in dealing with advanced technology was at odds with the uncertainty he felt in handling this new kind of relationship. How could he possibly balance the technical demands with the emotional ones? As Axel and Liv worked side by side, the room pulsed with quiet urgency. Cables and circuits were strewn across makeshift workbenches, holographic displays flickered with alien codes, and the hum of semi-operational machinery filled the space. Their hands often brushed, and in those fleeting touches, Axel could feel the warmth radiating from Liv's skin, a tacit reminder of her alien biology and the extraordinary bond they now shared. The boundary between human and alien blurred more with each passing hour. The spaceship vibrated with latent energy, an eerie reflection of Liv's own internal struggle. Axel noticed her occasional fleeting winces, a sign that their connection was taking a toll on her. Every instance of her pain felt like an alarm bell ringing in his mind, each pulse resonating with his own growing concern. In an unexpected moment, Liv tried to explain her erratic emotions, illustrating them through imageries of Zarian rituals and ancient practices, where emotional connection was not just a bond, but a survival mechanism. Her words were not just a cry for help, but also a revelation of vulnerability, an invitation for Axel to truly understand her world beyond the mechanical problems they were solving. For Axel, the weight of Liv's confession and the depth of their new relationship created an internal tug-of-war. On one hand, he was a mere human entangled with an alien emissary. On the other, he felt an unexplainable ardor compelling him to accept this bond. He questioned his own beliefs about relationships and love. Could a connection so deep and electric transcend species? Society taught rigid definitions of love, confining it within the borders of species and cultures. Yet, here he was, confronting something far beyond those conventional boundaries. His feelings morphed from skepticism to reluctant acceptance, and finally to eager commitment, driven by a mix of empathy and awe. Through their continual work, Axel noticed that Liv's alien technology responded to their growing connection. The ship's organic circuitry seemed to pulse in synchrony with their emotional states. When they were in harmony, the ship's systems appeared to stabilize. This newfound synchrony between emotion and tech was astonishing, revealing layers of Zarian advancements Axel couldn't have comprehended before. It was as if the ship itself was a living entity, feeding off the bond to come alive. This posed a whole new array of ethical questions for Axel. Could he and Liv really harness their bond to repair the ship, and was this connection sustainable? Time became a blur, each minute both extensively stretched and fleeting. The looming threat of irreversible consequences added gravity to their task. As Axel interfaced with the ship's central processor, he felt a jolt, an influx of code that wasn't just data but a narration of events rooted in Liv's subconscious. He saw fragments of her life, her struggles, her aspirations, all encoded within the nanocircuitry. This glimpse into her psyche was unsettling and enlightening, adding another complex layer to their already convoluted relationship. These digital imprints were not just technology malfunctioning, but snippets of a living mind reaching out, seeking understanding. Through these surreal episodes, Axel learned more about the Zarian Empire, its austere protocols, its advanced civilization, and the weight of expectations that Liv bore. She was not just a voyager, she was a beacon, burdened with the hopes of her people and the stringent mandates of their interstellar governance. Her failure to return threatened not just her existence but potentially strained relations between Earth and an unseen, powerful civilization. The stakes weren't merely personal anymore, they had interstellar ramifications Axel couldn't ignore. He felt the pressure mounting, every failed attempt at repairing the ship tightening an invisible noose around them both. Amidst the mechanics and algorithms, the brewing emotional storm finally found a semblance of calm. As Axel consciously embraced the bond with Liv, he felt a surge of clarity. They discovered a synergy, a unique, harmonious resonance that stabilized Liv's condition and exponentially improved their efficiency in repairing the ship. This newfound balance brought a surge of relief, sparking a moment of silent acknowledgement between them. It was a tacit admission that they were now more than just allies by circumstance. They were partners bound by choice and necessity. Yet, with this acceptance came the realization of the ticking clock relentlessly guiding their fates. As the final diagnostics ran, the spaceship hummed with newfound life. The bioorganic circuits glowed with a soft, steady light, reflecting the fruition of their combined efforts. But with the ship nearly operational, a painful truth emerged: Liv's inevitable departure. It hung around them, a palpable specter foreshadowing their imminent separation. The emotions they had fought to manage now surged unchecked, filling the room with an almost suffocating intensity. In the silent expanse of the dimly lit workshop, the hum of Zarian tech resonated through the air, heralding the final stages of the spaceship's repair. The pulsating blue glow from the control panels bathed the room in an ethereal light, casting dynamic shadows that danced on the walls. Despite the apparent progress, the atmosphere was laden with a palpable sense of foreboding, an impending conclusion neither Axel nor Liv wished to acknowledge, yet couldn't escape. Liv stood poised over the primary interface, her delicate yet precise fingers, with their slight digital shimmer, manipulating holographic diagrams and data streams. Her cyan skin seemed to absorb and reflect the ambient light, creating an almost celestial aura around her. Her luminescent eyes, however, betrayed a storm of emotions. Behind the veneer of focused concentration lay a knot of anxiety and sorrow, entwined with the dread of imminent departure. Axel, now deeply entwined in the Zarian technology, was kneeling by the open hatch of the propulsion unit. His tools, both earthly and otherworldly, lay strewn around him in a paradoxical harmony of primitive and advanced engineering. Sweat glistened on his brow as he gritted his teeth, making the final adjustments with a mixture of determination and reluctance. He felt it. This was nearing its end. The room echoed with the mechanical symphony of whirring, beeping, and the occasional hiss of cooling mechanisms, but despite the soundscape, there was an underlying silence. It was the silence of unspoken words, of unshed tears, and of unfulfilled futures. Both Axel and Liv were acutely aware of the fleeting time they had left, each second a grain of sand slipping through their fingers. Just as Axel tightened the last bolt, a tiny drone hovered into view, projecting a holographic display in front of Liv. Her eyes widened as she absorbed the information. It was a diagnostic readout, confirming the ship's restoration, an achievement that paradoxically brought no joy. Crossing the room, she approached Axel, her steps soft yet resolute. "The ship is ready," Liv stated, her voice a harmonious blend of tones that somehow conveyed both melody and melancholy. The words hung in the air like an inevitability, one that neither wanted to face but knew they had to. Axel rose to his feet, wiping his hands on his already dirtied pants. His gaze met Liv's, and in that moment, the weight of their silent bond felt almost unbearable. He could feel the intensity of their connection, now unmistakable and irrefutable, coursing through him like an electric current. This bond, formed through peril, shared effort, and emotional resonance, was as real and tangible as the ship they had worked on. They moved towards the central console where Liv activated a sequence, causing the interface to display Earth above them, floating in a sea of stars. It was then that the true gravity of Liv's departure crystallized for Axel. He realized that her journey was not just an escape or a venture, it was a return to a vastly different realm, one where the rules of their connection did not apply in the same way. "I have to go," Liv said, breaking the silence that merely accentuated their predicament. Her eyes shimmered with an almost unbearable intensity. "But our bond, it will endure, Axel. Even across the expanse of the galaxy, it will remain." The earnest assurance in her words brought a fleeting solace to Axel, although it did little to quell the ache of imminent separation. He recalled the myriad nights they'd spent decoding Zarian technology, the shared looks, and the fraught conversations. Each memory was now a precious ember, glowing faintly in the dark uncertainty of the future. Axel drew in a deep breath as he reached out, his hand hovering close to Liv's face. She responded by leaning into his touch, her skin remarkably cool yet brimming with a subtle vitality. It was an unspoken goodbye, a gesture that communicated their sentiments more eloquently than words ever could. In that hushed, intimate moment, time seemed to stretch indefinitely as they memorized each other's presence. The spaceship's engine systems began to hum in rising frequencies, breaking their reverie like an insistent alarm. Liv retreated slightly, her posture becoming formal as she prepared for the final sequence. Axel watched her illuminate the last set of commands with a swift hand gesture, setting the departure protocols into motion. The countdown began. He knew they couldn't extend this moment any longer. "Promise me," Axel abruptly spoke, his voice layered with a profound earnestness, "that you'll come back." Liv's expression softened, revealing the depth of her own internal struggle. "I promise," she replied, her words a solemn vow that rippled through the connection they shared, imprinting itself into his very soul. With one last lingering gaze, Liv ascended the ramp toward the cockpit of her now restored vessel. Axel stood rooted to the spot, his eyes never leaving her. The hatch closed with a final, resounding click, creating a physical barrier that, paradoxically, only intensified their metaphysical connection. The ship's anti-gravity thrusters activated, lifting it off the ground and into the air with a gentle hum. Axel squinted against the growing luminance as the vessel ascended further, and his heart clenched painfully. Despite their vow, the reality of Liv's departure was an excruciating paradox, necessary yet unbearable. As the spaceship pierced through the workshop's protective force field and into the sky, the room was momentarily illuminated by a radiant flash, leaving Axel engulfed in a cascade of mixed emotions. He stood there long after the vessel had vanished from sight, staring into the void left in its wake. He turned back to the now silent, dimmed workshop, looking at the scattered tools and the holographic diagrams that still floated in the air, as if waiting for the next set of commands. They were remnants, artifacts of an extraordinary chapter that had just closed with an agonizing finality. Yet, the space was imbued with an invisible, enduring presence, a testament to their unyielding bond. The connection, though now stretched across the cosmos, offered an unspoken promise of continuity and an anchor amidst the uncertainty. Axel reflected on the nature of their bond, understanding that it transcended the physical and spatial dimensions. It was a profound link forged through mutual respect, shared struggles, and enduring affection. Standing alone in the workshop, immersed in the soft afterglow of vanished luminescence, Axel knew that this profound journey had irrevocably altered him. The ordinary constraints of his previous existence had been shattered, unveiling new dimensions of experience, emotion, and commitment. Through this journey with Liv, Axel had discovered a deeper understanding of loyalty, connection, and the extraordinary lengths love could transcend. Despite the wrenching ache of separation, a spark of hope persisted. He trusted in their promise and the silent resonance of their connection. Their tale was far from over, it was merely evolving, morphing into a new, uncharted trajectory. The dim light of the control room flickered, and the soft hum of alien machinery was the only sound that filled the room. Axel Ridge sat there, awash in a cascade of conflicting emotions, staring at the vast emptiness where Liv had been just moments before. The crystalline contours of Liv's ship shimmered faintly, casting surreal reflections that danced on the walls and hinted at hidden circuits of its pulsating heart. Axel's heart ached with every flash of blue and green that painted his somber face. Liv had defied cosmic boundaries to return, reappearing in a breathtaking torrent of light and sound, shattering the fabric of space-time in a feat that even the most advanced Zarian technology considered unimaginable. Their bond had proven to be the catalyst for her miraculous return, an uncharted, unquantifiable force that transcended logic and science. Standing together amidst the twisted reality of their entwined fates, Axel and Liv symbolized an extraordinary union that defied every known principle of the universe. The re-emergence of Liv had not been a simple task. The process was grueling, wrenching at the very fabric of her existence. Her return signaled not just a triumph of will but an evolutionary leap in how they perceived existence. It was love, pure and unwavering, that had rendered the impossible a breathless reality. The cynical frameworks of interstellar life had inadvertently nurtured a bond that nature itself could not hold at bay. Liv now stood beside Axel once more, the warm blue glow of her skin illuminating the room. Her presence was a beacon, a living testament to their defiance of fate. As Axel locked eyes with her, something stirred deep within him, an amalgam of awe and love so profound that it nearly overwhelmed him. The realization washed over him in a wave. Their connection wasn't just an anomaly, it was a new form of energy, empowering and ever-evolving. The cockpit of the Zarian ship became a vessel of their shared consciousness, a microcosm of boundless potential where every corner whispered tales of otherworldly realms. Packed with ornately arranged control panels, the ship was a marvel of Zarian ingenuity, a blend of art and technology. Enigmatic glyphs and symbols transcribed onto glass screens seemed to communicate with Axel, revealing bits and pieces of Liv's world. Those intricate designs interlaced with streams of luminescent data that danced across the room, creating a mesmerizing symphony of light and motion. In the midst of this visual orchestra, Liv explained the impossible journey back to Axel through halting, emotion-laden words. Her eyes glistened as she described the overwhelming surge of energy that had pulled her through the cosmic divide, one sparked by their bond, a phenomenon no Zarian scientist had ever encountered. She spoke of the indescribable agony of bending space-time, the searing pain met with an equally intense jubilation, and the magnetic pull that had inevitably brought her back to Axel. Each word she spoke wove itself into the air, magnifying the magnitude of what they had achieved together. Axel listened, enraptured, feeling each syllable course through his veins like pulsating starfire. The holographic projections of Zarian constellations hovered around them, reflecting both the vastness of the universe and the minuscule yet monumental space they occupied. Every star, every glowing nebula, was a witness to their defiance of cosmic laws. As the narrative unfolded, Axel found himself grappling with an existential epiphany. In the grand scheme of the universe, love was an energy force on par with gravity and electromagnetism, uniting entities across galaxies. This revelation redefined his understanding of reality, a perspective that melded the logical patterns of his earthbound mind with the cerebral expansiveness of Zarian thought. Their connection didn't just represent an emotional bond, it had become a legacy, a paradigm shift for both human and Zarian civilizations. The room felt increasingly alive, a living organism amplifying their unity. The ship's interface glowed brighter, responding to their shared thoughts and emotions, and began harmonizing in unison. The curvature of space-time had become malleable, like clay in their hands. It was a stunning realization of their power together. They were no longer constrained individuals but facets of an intertwined being capable of altering reality itself. In the interminable silence, Axel took Liv's ethereal hand. Their touch sent ripples of warmth coursing through their connected forms, merging their essences further. What they had, now more than ever, went beyond the constraints of matter and energy. Their unity was an infinite loop of enigma and marvel, manifesting as a beacon amidst the void. As they stood in unity, an overwhelming sense of destiny enveloped them. Outside, the vast expanse of the galaxy awaited, a canvas filled with countless unknowns and limitless possibilities. The stars twinkled in approval, each one a silent spectator of their epic story. Axel and Liv knew that life beyond Earth would never be the same. They had defied not just physical distance but the very essence of cosmic separateness. The knowledge that their bond breathed life into the endless night was a solace, a promise of boundless horizons. They understood their mission wasn't just to be together, it was to navigate the universal truths their bond had unveiled. The path ahead was as fraught with peril as it was with wonder. Together, they would decipher the cosmic mysteries, revealing new dimensions of existence that once seemed unfathomable. They were, in essence, the next frontier. As the ship's engines hummed to life and the vast galaxy outside began its slow rotation aglow, Axel and Liv found solace in each other's gaze. With a synchronized breath, an acknowledgement of their renewed journey took root. Every molecule of their combined presence resonated with the newly discovered frequencies of their love. The final moments of the chapter resonated with a harmonious stillness, a silence punctuated by the profound realization of their endless voyage. They were pioneers of an uncharted love, the first explorers of this new kind of interstellar connection. Through Liv's return, they had shown the universe that love could indeed conquer all, even the greatest of interstellar distances. As the ship shot forward through the starry expanse, the reader was left with a deep sense of wonder and an acknowledgement that love's power is boundless. Axel and Liv's tale became a lasting reminder that true love and dedication transcend any obstacle. Their odyssey illustrated that home transcends geography. It's embodied in the person with whom we share our deepest bonds. For those brave enough to embrace the unknown, adventure is not just imminent but infinite. Their journey stood as an ever-present testimony to love's ultimate dominion over the cosmos. If you liked this story based on real events, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to like it. Here you can dive into a different reality every day, where anything can happen. Comment below what kind of story you would like to hear here. Thank you very much for your attention. We are the Sci-Fi family.